Many places in the Scripture speak about a gift. Now, the concept of gift is related to grace from a biblical standpoint. So when Messiah, as he is in the passage of Scripture that we've been studying, when he speaks about the gift of God, it's also related to the grace of God. And I love that concept, gift. Why? Because usually people give gifts out of love. Remember what we talked about? For God so loved the world. That is, in one method and one manner only, God displayed His love. What did He do? He gave gift. He gave His only begotten Son. But many people aren't aware of that fact. Many people aren't aware of what the outcome is of receiving His love, receiving that gift, being partakers of the grace of God. And we're going to see today, we began this last week, that Yeshua is speaking to a woman. Now, the fact that He's speaking to a woman, just Him and her alone, is quite astonishing. But the fact that she is a Samaritan woman, that is an enemy of the Judeans, is even something more unusual. But what we see in that fact is this, that the love of God, the purposes of God, they break down all those man-made barriers of separation. Yeshua came to give biblical truth, and I want you to see how He gave this truth to that woman so that she might understand God's revelation and respond to it. So before we go any further, we need to ask ourselves, are we people that if God were to reveal His truth to us, if He was to convict our hearts that He is the Son of God, that He wants us to respond to His love, to receive His sacrifice on that tree, His blood that was shed for the atonement and the remission of sins, if He was to impress that upon your heart, would you respond? And perhaps you've already responded to that gift of the gospel. What does that mean for your life today? How is the gift of God impacting and influencing every thought, every word, every decision, every action you make? You see, the gift of God is a gift that is going to change you, your thoughts, your actions, and your eternity. So this message that He's speaking to this Samaritan woman has great implications for her, but also great implications for us. So look with me to John's Gospel, chapter 4, and we're ready again for verse 10. What do we read here? Well, Yeshua is speaking, and He says to her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it was who said to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked Him, and He would have given to you waters of life," or living water. Now, I don't know another way through different words than the word kingdom there is to speak about the kingdom. When He speaks of living water, He's talking about a kingdom reality. But does she understand that? Well, we'll see that answer in a few minutes. Notice that the woman says to him, "Sir, you don't have anything to draw." That is, you don't have anything to get water out of this well. You see, she's thinking of His message, which has great kingdom implications. She's focusing those words into her present situation from a earthly and from what I would say a natural standpoint. And here's the problem. If we're always thinking about life in this world, we're going to miss out on what? What should be the focus of our lives, and that is the kingdom reality. Everything that Messiah did, everything that He said, every miracle that He performed, all of that pointed to the kingdom. And if we're wise, we're going to look for our life to have meaning only through a kingdom reality. That is this. If we're not focusing on the kingdom, if our lives are not being about the kingdom business, our life is not going to have a meaning that has any significance in this age and certainly when we die. Instead of being people who are satisfied, and that's what He's talking about, living waters, satisfaction. instead of receiving that eternal satisfaction, what's going to be the outcome? Well, how does chapter 3 end? We talked about the wrath of God being on that person, literally. It will remain upon him, and the context is forever and ever. So these are important things that we need to understand, and unfortunately, at first, this woman is not understanding them. She focuses, look again, she says at the end of verse 10, she says, Sir, you have nothing to draw with. And the well, and this word for well is a different word. It's talking about the shaft of that well. It is a deep well, meaning this. If you don't have a vessel in order to draw, you can't get it. You need help to get it. You can't get it in and of yourselves. Now, that's an important principle. Why? Because in an earthly sense, that water that's down there, a person cannot take a hold of through his own strength. He can't go down and get it. He has to be brought up. He needs a tool. He needs assistance. And in that same way, we need assistance. We can't find that living water in and of ourselves. We need a help. We need a tool to do it. And here's the problem. This woman understands it from a physical standpoint, getting literal water out of that well. But when he's talking about living water, it's not just regular water, but living water, she doesn't think about the fact that she's going to need assistance to it. So she simply says, Sir, you don't have anything to draw with, and that shaft of that well is quite deep. Therefore what? Therefore, from where, therefore, do you have this living water? She kind of understands that she's not talking about this well because he has nothing to get it. He's offering living water. It's not coming from there. So from where is this living water? And that is to tell us a very important truth, that this living water is not of this world. That is, it is not physical. It is not materialistic. It is not something that we can purchase. It's not something that we can work for. What is it? Well, remember how all of this began. Yeshua says, if you knew the gift of God. And remember, we talked about that word knew shows someone far away from knowing. And does that depict you? Are you far away from knowing the truths of God concerning the kingdom? So move on to verse 12. It says here, For are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave to us this well? Now, notice she's doing something. She, in one sense, has some interest in this living water. But in another, she's bringing up this cultural, this society, what we could say, blockade between Samaritans and Judeans. She goes right back to who? Our father, Jacob. And their religion says, Jacob, that they were the people, they were the true sons of Jacob from a spiritual standpoint. Not all the tribes anymore, but just those who were the Samaritans. So she says, are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave to us this well? And he and his herds and his sons drank from it? Read on to verse 13. And Yeshua answered and said to her, Everyone who drinks this water shall thirst again. So she goes back to the superiority of this well, and Jacob is the one that gave it to them, and they were there drinking from it, not the Judeans who focus in on Jerusalem. Now, what does Yeshua say? Well, he makes it very pinpoint. Why? He puts a spiritual truth in a physical context. Why do I say that? He speaks to her and says, well, let me ask you a question. You know, you've been drinking from that water. Does it satisfy you forever? Does it have eternal consequences? He says, you know, everyone, and she's a perfect testimony. Why? Heat of the day, 6 hour, 12 noon, according to our standards. What is she doing? As she does every day. To come and draw water. Why? Because the amount of water that she draws for a day only satisfies for a day. But he's talking about what? Eternal consequences. And when we are eternal minded, we're also going to be kingdom minded. Why? because that concept of eternal and kingdom goes together. There is a quality that lasts and endures, not something that is scarce or something that flees away in time. So look once more.